Hey, welcome to Mind Your Own Biz, the podcast where we help small business owners with big dreams build something authentically you. I'm Alicia Yervis, educator, marketer, designer, nacho enthusiast, and your big sister in business. I'm excited for us to have this cozy spot to chat. Each episode, we'll tackle candid conversations, actionable tips, and a few fun tangents to help you run your business your way. Because business is always personal, no matter what anyone says. So grab your iced coffee or those nachos, and let's get started. Hi there, and welcome to another episode of Mind Your Own Biz. My name is Alicia Yervis. I am your host. Thank you so much for being here today. I have been thinking quite a bit lately about how many of my guests, my clients, my students, my followers, my email subscribers are multifaceted, Renaissance women. They like to do a little bit of everything, in business and life, and that's the same as me. And sometimes when we're creative, right, when we are makers, we're artisans, we're artists. Sometimes it's hard to juggle the art and the admin, right, behind the scenes. And, especially with so many of my members of my audience being neurodivergent as well, neurodivergent business owners, trying to build something meaningful that still feels like them. Today's episode is going to be so much fun. I really can't wait to get into this discussion with my awesome guest today. But if the back end of your business feels like a dumpster fire, I want to get you this resource that I made for you. It is called VA 101. How to reclaim your time by hiring a virtual assistant. So if you're ready to streamline your business and reclaim your time, like I did 5 years ago when I hired the wonderful Caitlin, who is the wind beneath my wings, I made you a free guide that covers everything you need to know about hiring and working with a virtual assistant, from finding the right fit to delegating tasks effectively. And you can grab it at aliciayervis.com/VA101. I really can't wait for you to dive into that freebie. It's really going to help you out. And also another set of hands that I use, another assistant that I use day to day in my business and life is ChatGPT. I use it for all kinds of things. It does so much more than helping you with, copy, helping you write. I don't even really use it for that. I use it for all the other amazing things that it can do. And so don't forget about ChatGPT as well. I taught a workshop on it a couple weeks ago. I think I'm going to do an encore presentation of it because people have been asking. Because I want you to see what's possible with ChatGPT in your corner. It really does so much that I'm sure you're not even thinking of. So I'm really excited to get to today's guest. She is one of those people who just gets it. She's a full-on creative with a love of systems, which is not something you hear about all the time. So I can't wait to dig into all of that. So artists out there, listen up. All right. So I am very, very excited to welcome Kay Potter today. Kay is the founder of the Artist's Guide to Business, where she helps creative entrepreneurs turn their talent into thriving, sustainable businesses without burning out or selling out. After growing her own art business from just $12,000 to over $90,000 in annual revenue, Kay now helps other artists break free from the starving artist myth using real-world strategies, simple systems, and a deep respect for the creative process. With over a decade of experience as a working artist, Kay blends creative insight with smart business strategy. Her podcast, blog, newsletter, and digital tools have reached thousands of artists working to turn their passion into dependable income. She's known for her honest, down-to-earth approach that focuses on strong client relationships and sustainable growth without the fluff. Kay lives in Montana with her husband, Jim, their cat, Sophie, and her best friend, Huckleberry, a dog with personality. So I'm very excited to welcome Kay Potter. So hi, Kay. It's so great to finally have some FaceTime with you. We've been chatting online for a bit. We've known each other for a while, trying to get this scheduled, and I'm so excited to welcome you today.
Great to see you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. So I just told our audience a little bit about your story, and I would love to know if you could give us the short version of how you went from artist to artist teaching business to other artists.
That is a really good question. I think that we all kind of have these moments in our life where there are clarifying indicators, right? There's like this thing that happens, and you're kind of like, yeah, I think this is the route to go. So I'll kind of explain that in a second, but essentially, I've been an artist for 10 plus years, and I have, that whole time I've made my own rent, I've made my own food. It's been very much a full business for me, and it's very connected to my well-being as far as financial security goes. Um, I did start out in about 2014. I was not the greatest artist, but that's okay because I had a lot of really great support. People were willing to pay me to learn and become a better artist, which was fantastic. In
Mm-hmm.
those early years, though, I was, somewhat surprised once you get into the industry of being an artist. And I'm sure it's many industries, but especially art. You have a lot of requests from people asking you for free things. And I'm sure everyone has felt this at one time or another, where it's like, oh, I really want this opportunity. I want to start growing this business. I don't want to ask people to pay me though. I feel like, just the opportunity to do the work and present myself professionally is enough. So you kind of like have this feeling, especially when you're starting out. But, along with that, I also thought, wow, this is really unsustainable. So, I made it a priority pretty much from day one to always get paid something for my time, effort, materials, all of that. And as I improved, I increased my rates accordingly. Uh, so again, this is all kind of coming back to it. So about, I would say 8 years in, 7 years in, um, let's see here. Yep. I switched over to live wedding painting, which is an amazing
Mm.
art form. It's an opportunity to increase your revenue in a really like single impact moment. And then I really love painting in front of people and making art accessible. And so it just fit all the marks for me. But what I discovered then is that I was essentially introducing myself and my business to people who had no idea who I was, who had no idea that I've been doing this professionally for 10 years and or at that time 8 or 7, and they were again, right back to kind of ground level, can you do these things for free? Can you do these things for cheaper? Now, I don't know why, but when I was like 27, I thought the world would just like change with me. Like I thought, oh, as I get older, like people will start to understand they need to pay artists. So when
Mm-hmm.
I had this kind of cyclical realization, I realized, oh, this is cyclical. This is something that we actually have to actively change. And the best place, in my opinion, to change that is with the actual artists who benefit from being paid.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was sort of that first, you know, I guess, curtain pulled back. The other
Mm-hmm.
thing, and I'll wrap it up real quick, is, and I think a lot of people who have been in careers for a long time, you look at corporate people, you look at anyone, it feels better when your years of work expand beyond yourself. So like
Mm.
when I have the opportunity to mentor others or to take a lesson I learned in 17, if I can take that opportunity or that lesson and provide it to someone who's currently going through it, then I've expanded my existence. I've expanded my ripple. And so that to me is really satisfying. And the other thing is like I love artists. And so it's just fun to interact with them and to watch
Yeah.
them grow.
I love that. And it reminds me of what is that quote like you can only keep what you give away or something like that where it's like, you have you've gone through the experience, you have the expertise or you have the maybe the solution or the tip or the advice that they're looking for. And then by you being able to share that with them, it's fulfilling. It's like, it brings even more meaning to your creativity, to your work, to your calling. So I really relate to that too. And I wonder, like, first of all, I want to dig more into the Artist Guide to Business, which is the name of your business, if I recall, right?
Yeah.
I want to talk about that. But before we jump into that, did you always have like an entrepreneurial spirit, or did that kind of sneak up on you based on what you were going through as an artist?
Yeah. So my father was a business owner, so I've been around someone owning a business for my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that probably just, you know, seeped in there. in
Mm-hmm.
my,
Mm-hmm.
so when I did start becoming an artist, it was really natural to approach it like a business for me.
Mm-hmm.
I would say the other piece of that is when I decided to become an artist, the reason was because I was a really not great employee.
Okay,
Anytime,
okay.
yeah, and not saying, I mean, I was also kind of not really that young actually, but I was kind of young. But anytime I sort of solved, like, I learned what I needed to do at these places, I was done. You know what I mean? Like,
Okay.
I just like, was kind of just like, okay, now I'm bored. And when I'm
Mhm.
bored, the hours go by so slowly. You know,
Yes.
you see these trends. I don't know if you guys have seen these trends of people on TikTok or whatever, where they're like, when I have to clean up my kitchen, I pretend I'm a bar wench. And like, you know what I mean? Like, I like pretend I'm like in a medieval, setting and I put candles on and that's how I clean my kitchen. Like I
Yeah.
relate to that so much. I was a bartender at a brewery and I would literally just like fantasize like I'm just I'm just cleaning the floor, you know. But the other thing too, and I think this will relate more than what I just said to everyone listening is I had a moment in 2013 where I got dumped, whatever. It was not meant
Hmm.
to be. But I had to really look at myself and really ask myself, like, what do you want to do with your life and what is important to you?
Hmm.
And clearly, trying to make other people happy in a relationship or whatever is not working. It's not
Hmm.
going to, you can't depend on it because there's another person involved, right? So the
Sure.
question became, when I'm 80 years old, and do you ever ask yourself this question? Because I get mixed responses. When I'm 80 years old and I'm looking back, what will I feel proud about? What will I be happy I did? And the answer
Hmm.
was art. you know
Hmm.
so so that leads to an entrepreneur spirit of this is what I want to do with my life, and so here we go.
I love that so much. So to answer you, do I ever ask myself that question? No, and I should. And it's hard because I was just talking about this on another episode a couple days ago. I my brain is a brain that constantly lives in the future. It's like
Mhm.
exclusively in the future, and that's partially because of my imagination and it's partially because of my anxiety. But I am always thinking about, oh, when I get to that milestone, or when I get to do that thing, when I acquire that thing, when I go to that place, whatever. But I'm never questioning it in the way that you just presented, which is when I'm there and I'm looking back, what are the decisions and the things and the stories and the memories that I'm going to be proud of and I'm going to be, happy about and take with me. So I love that reframe. Thank you for sharing that. And that is something that I need to be better at. It's like like it's a practice to do that, and then it becomes more frequent. The more you do it, the easier it is to remember to do that. So I love that that was art for you, and also thank you for what you're doing in your business by helping artists get paid for their work and for their talents and for what they're providing others. Like, absolutely. I know so many artist friends, including musicians, including, all different kinds of art, um, who are constantly asked to accept less money, accept no money, make themselves smaller, whatever, whatever. And art in the very many different, types of art, that's what brings beauty and joy and all of that to the world. And it's so maddening when people devalue that. And, of course, like there's all different things you can do now, and, Canva and people doing their own thing and whatever, that's fine. But I just can never accept or understand the people who could look at you with a straight face and, want you to work for free or want you to work for peanuts when you are doing this amazing custom special thing like the live painting, for example, at the wedding. I have never seen one of those in person, but I've seen them on Instagram, different artists doing that, which I think is an absolutely incredible like just thing to offer. That is so cool how you can do that so quickly. And it's so special and it's so unique and singular to the couple, to the actual event itself. And the idea that that you have to like negotiate your rates and all that stuff is just, it just sucks. And so thank you for thank you for your business and helping artists figure out strategies and messaging and all that kind of stuff to get what they deserve.
Absolutely. And that's really what it comes down to is giving artists the tools to be able to say, this is why I'm charging what I'm charging.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you come to me and I haven't done any of this work and you say, why are you charging $3,000 for a live wedding painting? The
Mm-hmm.
material or the canvas is only $150 to $300. The paint is only so much. You're only there for so many hours. Why are you charging this amount? And the trick for artists is to flip that script. And for everyone who's an entrepreneur, you don't break down costs. You that's not how you approach it with your clients. It's all and you know this, it's all about what is the value of this thing, you know? And from
Mm-hmm.
my experience with my past clients, they look at that wedding painting every single day for the rest of their life, right? It's the
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
impact. They have this
Mm-hmm.
really special moment at the night of where the two of them get to pause for a second and they get to look at their painting and they see themselves as a married couple for the very first time. How do you put a price tag on that? You really can't.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
for artists especially, because we're not selling bread, we're not selling plungers. We're not selling like
Yeah.
these things that have a very concrete need. We've got to dig into the emotional impact, the storytelling, and all of that. So I might be getting ahead of ourselves here, but that's
Nope.
really, that's the kind of thing I'm trying to help artists learn and teach. And I'll tell you what, the second they kind of dig in and get it, they get it. It's not,
Oh.
there's this myth. And I want to hear about myths you've heard too, or you see your friends go through. But there's this myth that artists and business don't match, and it's not
Mm.
true at all. It's literally not true. Like the second they see it as a tool that they can use and that they can manipulate too and get creative with, it's
Mm-hmm.
over. They know exactly how to do it then. you
Yeah.
know?
Yep, yep. And I love to hear that the folks who are going through your program, the artists that are in your program, like I love hearing that once that clicks in their brain, there's no going back. And they're like, yeah, like I see my worth, my value, my talents, my skill. Like, of course, like I am in business to make money, to support myself, to support my family, whatever. And when you were talking about you're about the live wedding painting and why are you charging $3,000, whatever, it was reminding me, and I looked it up while you were talking. It reminded me of the example of the graphic artist or graphic designer Paula Scher, where she was designing the logo for Citibank, I think, and she drew it in 2 seconds on a napkin. And she was like, this is it, this is the umbrella, or this is your logo. And she was trying to explain the concept of it was an umbrella and all this stuff. And people were giving her pushback, like, what do you mean, like, it took you 2 seconds to draw it. And her quote was, it took me a few seconds to draw it, but it took me 34 years to learn how to draw it in a few seconds. And like,
Exactly. Yeah.
and I love that so much because, and this is the next part I wanted to dive into with you, is that I come from before I opened my own business, I spent 15 plus years working in theater, working in the marketing departments and design departments or graphic design departments of some theaters here in New Jersey. And so much fun, learned so much, got to work on so many amazing projects. But I also had I was constantly surrounded by artists of, all different types, costume designers, set designers, painters and sound designers and lighting technicians, all these different people at the top of their game in all these different art forms. And so many of them definitely want to be behind the scenes and not on stage. When we would have our start of project meet and greet, bagel breakfast in the morning, for a new show, there are so many artists who are absolutely incredible geniuses who could not stand being in the circle, having to say hello and their name and talk about what they did. And so I would imagine that for so many of your students who are amazing artists and they put out such great work, there is a disconnect in their brain of that confidence piece of being able to speak about their work, speak about their worth, speak about what they can do. How does, first of all, is that accurate? And secondly, if it is, how do you start to detangle that for folks who want to earn more money and make more money and talk about what they do when they don't maybe have that confidence inside because they prefer to be behind the canvas or behind the crochet or behind the whatever.
Oh, okay. I love this question because I am out here like making YouTube videos and I
Mm-hmm.
like have all these lights in my house right now and I'm looking at you and I'm like, this is not what I set out to do. I don't,
Mm-hmm.
this isn't like what I love to do. I'm not like, yes, if I could just be in front of everybody all the time talking, that's my dream. Not my dream. But it's necessary, right? And
Yeah.
so it's a really important question because there's a lot of different avenues to it, especially for creatives. People who are creative, they love working with their hands and their minds, getting into that flow state. And that flow
Mm-hmm.
state doesn't have that outward expression, that outward communication, the words to, so this is actually kind of funny, but like when I started live wedding painting, I was nervous and I was very scared, and it
Mm-hmm.
was very challenging. And I would very intentionally, like, one of the things with live wedding painting, you let people talk to you. But there are certain parts in a painting I will not let people talk to me because I can't. I have to focus. So I can get
Yeah.
that. So, for anyone who, and this is a common refrain, so you're right on the mark. Very many artists and creatives will say, I hate talking about myself. I hate talking
Yeah.
about. I had one student I was working with who also shared that sentiment, and his work was great. I found out his wife was very good at talking about his work. And so
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, what does she say about your work? She had gotten him a few different commissions just by being friendly and discussing his work. And he was like, huh, I really don't know. And I said, well,
Mm.
that might be a good place to start. Because sometimes we're so close to our work, it can be really hard to understand it from an outside perspective. And that
Mm-hmm.
can be really challenging for that communication factor. So if you have someone in your life who is a really big fan of yours or loves your work, has bought it, is passionate about what you're doing, have a conversation with them. It can feel definitely a little bit uncomfortable to say, hey, will you jump on a Zoom call with me for a little bit and just discuss my work? But it's worth doing because then you can ask them, how did it make you feel? Why did you pick it out? Why do you like it? What does it do for you? You want to
Mm-hmm.
start getting to know how your work is impacting people around you. And that's where you can start to kind of, bridge the two worlds, if you will. Now, as
Yeah.
far, yeah, does that make sense?
Absolutely.
I
Yes.
have a
Yes,
lot,
please.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, so you can start there if you're like, I wouldn't even know how to talk about my work. Get someone
Mm-hmm.
else to talk about it, but listen and pay attention. The next thing is about that confidence to talk about your work from yourself. This is the hardest thing. So first of all, remember that things that seem ordinary or boring about yourself may be the things that are very interesting and fun to other people. So if you can just be sincere and share your inspiration, share your thought process sincerely, with affection, that's a great place to start. The next
Mm-hmm.
piece is, so don't try to make up a story. I have seen this happen a lot with artists because they've gotten a lot of business info that's like, you need a story, you need a story, you need a story. And then all of a sudden I'm talking to them, I'm looking at them, the person they are, the things they've shared with me are so interesting and compelling. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is very cool. And then I say, okay, so tell me about your art and your story. And then it's like we're over here. And I'm like, wait, what happened?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
being really kind to yourself and not trying to be something you're not is going to be important. The other thing, Alicia, is, I mean, confidence comes after action. We tend to think like, when I'm confident, I will do this thing. Once I'm confident, I will
Yep.
charge correctly, right?
Uh-huh.
Once
Yep.
I'm
Yep.
confident, I'll start telling people about my art. Once I'm confident, I will submit to a gallery or a show or whatever. That's backwards. We got to flip that script, take small steps to help you build that confidence. So if you're like, the idea of telling someone about my art is literally the most terrifying idea in the world, start small. Call up a friend and say, hey, can I tell you about a project I'm working on? You have to start it. You have to initiate it. Other people won't. They don't want to be
Mm-hmm.
rude. But if
Mm-hmm.
you can say, hey, can I tell you about this project I'm working on? And they'll say, oh, yeah, definitely, because they're going to be excited. Then you just take 5 minutes and tell them about it. And if they're a friend, it can be the most jumbled up ever, but at
Mm-hmm.
least you're getting that started, and that will slowly build your confidence.
I love this. So I was literally just about to ask you, when you were talking about the different ways that they can approach this topic, I was thinking like these are all examples of what you had talked about on your website and stuff about action building confidence. So I love that we went over that and some specific, not so scary ways that they can kind of dip their toe in the water to help, navigate that gap between that self-doubt and that self-belief. So I love the advice that you shared there. And yeah, like why not start with a friend who, you enjoy spending time with. They're, someone that you trust with your secrets and, your life. And it might be so helpful, like you said, the gentleman who didn't even know what his spouse was saying to get him these gigs, but his spouse must have been doing something right, to
Yeah.
describe his art and what he can do, because you never know where, it takes a village, right? You never know where your village is going to come from, to help you with word of mouth and promoting yourself and getting yourself out there. But
Absolutely.
yeah, there is that piece of like, you got to start, you got to do something, because otherwise we're going to be hiding our business and our talents under this rock. People need to see it. And so I love the flipping the script example that you shared. And I'm curious too, like in your when you're working with your students, why do you think um the topic of money, right? And the topic of I want to be paid, for my talents, for my art, for my time, all of that stuff. Why do you think that shame comes up in that a lot? Because I've heard that too from my students who maybe they're a wellness practitioner, or maybe they're a caterer, or maybe they're, a hairstylist, whatever. They all deal with that too, of just I feel bad, like I want to earn more money, but I feel bad asking for it. I feel like I charge too much. I don't want to ask for that. They'll say no, and it's a feeling of shame that they feel. Why do you think that's like a thing?
Gosh, I think there's a lot of reasons, shame around money. And I think
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people will have very personal reasons. Why do you personally feel shame around asking for money? I think we all
Hmm.
probably have our own what's called money stories, sort of things we understand. I think women especially have been trained over time or socialized to um, do more with less. So women have been socialized very much like, you know, don't ask for money, just make it work. And this is
Hmm.
like historical stuff I've read. I'm not an expert on this subject, but I do have a little context. But
Hmm.
when it comes to artists, especially, or caterers, or really any service providers, anyone in business, let's be honest, if you feel a sense of shame around asking for more money, I think that there is a disconnect between who you're focusing on then. Let me try that again. So when you over associate your value with the money, this is the thing, right? Like this is the rally call is like, I'm going to charge my worth. I'm going to,
Hmm.
show up and charge what I'm worth and all of this. That's actually not that helpful because your worth as a human is priceless. Like on this earth, you deserve to be here, you deserve rent, you deserve to eat, you deserve to be secure, you deserve all of this.
Yeah.
So there is no inherent worth of you that has a dollar sign. You just are. So the dollars, they have to be somewhat objective. And if you can get really objective with them and understand how they make a business work, well then what are we talking about? Shame then, right? Then it doesn't matter. Like
Hmm.
I'm not selling these paintings at an amount so that I can like I don't know, throw money around my room and just like cheer in it. You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
if you are, whatever, go for it. But if it's very objective of how can I keep this business running? That's
Hmm.
where you can see those numbers coming in, right? Like if I undercharge for my services, I'll be out of business in a year. Who does that help? It doesn't help
Hmm.
anyone, right? So if you are trying to increase your prices or increase the amount you're asking for your services, I mean, look at it as it's a holistic thing where you're just trying to keep yourself in business. And
Hmm.
if you're in business, you can serve others, right? So if you run yourself ragged, if you never let yourself have a vacation, if you're not putting anything away for retirement, if you're not doing any of these financial things that are going to keep you safe and keep you well, then who are we helping? Who are we really helping when we don't ask our clients to pay an extra $200 for something or even
Hmm.
more? So I understand that I'm not really explaining like what is the shame or why is the shame, but more a different perspective on actually just fully separating yourself from your numbers. Just,
Yeah.
you know, what do I need to do to make this work? And I will tell you
Yeah.
this, in my own experience, I noticed that because people might wonder, like, when do I know if I'm ready to raise prices? Or how do I know I need to raise prices? If you're feeling resentment, like full on, if you're feeling resentment for a client that you have gotten in your business that you have built and this dream that
Hmm.
you're pursuing, if you feel resentment, it means there's an imbalance in what you're receiving for what you're giving. So that's a really good place to start. Like, oh, I'm feeling resentful. Either I need to put myself in check here and remember that this is actually awesome, or I'm giving too much for what I'm receiving and I need to increase what I receive. So there's that aspect to it as well, as far as, yeah, how do you know when to raise prices? I feel like I'm rambling.
Yeah.
I'm lost.
No. I was gonna say that's really good advice. That's a good reminder because I think, I mean, just speaking for myself, sometimes there's like a little sparkle of something in a negative way going on in my brain or in my gut that I kind of, let me ignore that. I don't know what that's about, whatever, and then you ignore it enough times where then it becomes like a raging bitch and it's like, no, like, something's wrong here. And
Absolutely.
I'm feeling resentment. I'm feeling dread about getting up and working on this project or talking to
Yeah.
this person or whatever. And you're absolutely right. Like that is a moment where you really need to look at what you're bringing in on this and look at the timelines, look at the personalities, look at all those things, but figure out like, okay, the next time I take on a project like this, it needs to be at X dollar to make it worth my while, to make it the, the get out of bed fee or the I'm get excited about the project fee or whatever it is. And that's a really good indicator to check in with yourself and see how you're feeling in the moment on a thing, to kind of help you steer that ship. Um, and I know that,
And
people talk about PETA fees too, pain in the ass fee. But but yeah, like it's a what I see a lot from some of my students too is like when they're figuring out their pricing for a package or a product or whatever the thing, you know, very often they immediately negate like, well, I'm never going to make X. So I might as well, start super low and, the materials are only XYZ, blah, blah, blah. And so like this is a good price. And I'm like, what about your time? What about your talent, your education, your credentials? Like all of those have a dollar amount too that we need to add on to here.
absolutely. I'm going to add another category to that too.
Yeah, please do.
What about your clients? What about your clients? Think about them,
Mm.
right? If I
Mm-hmm.
charge $1,200 for a live wedding painting, then I need to do like 40 in a year,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
So are you telling me then that each of those clients is going to get the best of me and the best that I can provide for them? Absolutely not, right? I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
be turning and burning. I want to be clear. There is a live wedding painter who does like, I don't know, like 80 a year. She's nuts. She's been in it a long time and she does an amazing job. And anyone
Mm-hmm.
who is doing those numbers, I'm really not trying to criticize it. But for me, myself, I know that that would kill me.
Mm-hmm.
I would be
Sure.
destroyed. And so
Sure.
I charge more because I know that I can give my clients more and the full package that I can show up well rested, I can show up ready to roll when they are exchanging the proper amount of money for me to maintain everything. The other thing that is so overlooked. So, you know, I try to think about it like we have this amazing thrift store in town. It's so good. And I got my favorite coat ever from this thrift store, $5 for this amazing
Mm.
like wool coat that's like some rancher's past coat. It smells good. It's not bad. But it's like the warmest thing I've ever worn. It's so comfortable. And the other day I put it in the dryer thinking, "Oh, I'll remember to take it out before it gets hurt." But it was just taking forever to dry and I needed it. And what did I do? I forgot. I forgot that it was in the dryer. So I pulled it out and I was like, oh no, I probably shrunk it. I probably ruined it. And then what did my mind say? My mind instantly said, it's okay. It was worth $5. It cost me only
Mm-hmm.
$5. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking, not a big loss.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Mm-hmm.
don't worry, the story ended well. The code is
Okay.
fine.
Okay, good. That was my next question.
But that is the psychology behind spending less on something. If I
Mm-hmm.
lose it, if it goes away, if I don't use it. So if you're selling courses, right? If you're selling these kind of services or digital products or things like that, the smaller dollar amount means less buy-in from your clients, which means less commitment from them and less
Mm-hmm.
transformation or change for them. It's the same
Mm-hmm.
with services. When I charge more for a service or a pet portrait, if when I sell pet portraits, I charge a certain amount. I don't nickel and dime my clients. I don't say, hey, well, the shipping's going to be an additional blah, blah, blah. I'm going to have to throw that on there. I'll figure it out and then I'll send you the invoice. Like, no, none of that. They have lives. They don't need to hear that, right? So I'm
Mm-hmm.
just gonna blanket it $30 for shipping on every product that's in the main one. That way I
Mm-hmm.
can serve them well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when your prices are increased, you're having a stronger emotional impact and buy-in from the people whose lives you're trying to make better or impact. So
Hmm.
that's just another category where you kind of, what's my worth? What's my training? What's my life look like? How can I maintain this business? But also, how can I best serve and benefit my clients?
I love this conversation because I was just talking about this recently. So I led, I did a ChatGPT paid workshop, like a paid online workshop. And it was my first paid workshop that I had done. I have done free master classes in the past where I then, pitch my larger course at the end. But this was my first, just there's no pitch, just come and learn for an hour. It's $47 or whatever it was, and that's it. And I had such a great response for signups, first of all. But secondly, as the presenter, I felt so much less pressure because there was no pitch for me to get to at the end. I was just
Mm,
the sale already happened when they signed up for the thing. And I was
mhm.
able to just like relax, stretch my legs, present, have fun. And now I'm so motivated and inspired to do more of these because action creates confidence. And, I want to do so many more of these workshops this year. And that was such a big like light bulb moment for me and shift. And then in that same vein, I also recently attended a paid online boot camp that was about Facebook ads, because I learned Facebook ads years ago when it was like brand new, but I haven't been running them the last couple years since pandemic because everything's just been so crazy and they change so frequently that I was like, I'm not giving Zuckerberg another dollar until I learn like best practices, current, let me get brushed up basically. And so I paid $25 for this 5-day boot camp. It was a fantastic boot camp. It was like the best boot camp I've ever done. And that $25 made me show up. It made me pay
Mhm.
attention. It made me feel invested. And when we pay money, we pay attention.
That's
And
right.
so I love what you're saying because when they have that skin in the game, when they feel like they invested something, and there's a different mindset to it for sure. Similarly, from my theater days, we would have free movie screenings or free panel discussions or whatever, and we knew, okay, 50% of the people are not going to come because it was a free ticket. And that was true every
Absolutely.
single time. But
Every
if they
time.
paid for, a concert ticket, a play ticket, they're going to be there.
Mhm.
So it makes a lot of sense what you're saying. And it's interesting to think about that concept from an artist perspective, an artist business as well. So I love everything that you shared about that.
Yeah,
Um,
and I'll one more thing too. It's
yeah,
really hard,
yeah.
like, because so many artists are served by nonprofits and things like that, there are a lot of free offers for workshops, for things, all put on by nonprofits in the name of
Hmm.
supporting artists. What
Hmm.
and so I'm facing that, and that's a challenge I have to balance. Why am I charging when these people are doing it for free? Or, why would they come to me when these people are doing it for free? First thing I would say is a lot of those people have actually been in the nonprofit sector for a really long time. And I have been an artist and have been in the trenches there. But
Hmm.
other thing is, by spending or by investing and spending in the things to make yourself better and your business better, you better understand how to ask for money. If you want everything for free, it's going to be really hard for you to make that mental shift to understand what a buyer's psychology is to get them to give you money. So
Yeah,
that can be a little bit circular, and I'm not saying like go out and spend a bunch of money and that's the answer to the problem, or like that's
sure.
how you make your income. But when you start to understand, oh, when I buy this thing for $99, I am if there's $99 on the line, I need to look at what I'm going to be getting, how it's going to impact. You go through all of those steps and that helps you understand your buyers more too in the long run. So
Hmm.
part of my business is literally teaching artists also how to spend money, which I know sounds totally bonkers, but it's so true. Like,
Hmm.
we have been in this sort of weird side silo for so long of just like weirdness with money. We're not, but we don't live there. We have to live in the world that we live in, which is spending and earning. So,
Mm-hmm. Very good point. Very good
yeah.
point. Yes. Um, I want to talk about you've mentioned that mapping out your customer journey can actually be a fun thing to do. And I want to know, why do you say that? And tell us a little bit more about how you do that.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I know that you are a systems person, aren't you? You love
I
like,
am,
yeah.
I am, but like I am with a little asterisk because I am very resistant to systems, but my ADHD needs them. So I kind of have something that my VA and I have created, which is called loose structure, flowy structure.
Love it. Love it.
Um, and it's kind of like it's there for me when I need it. I have a loose thing I can kind of follow, but I don't feel like I'm totally committed to it. I can go off book, I can, change the route that day or whatever, but I do need to have certain things in place. And ChatGPT has been amazing for my business, but also different automations that I have, through my email marketing system, through my website, through social, like, different things. So yes, I do like systems, but I also feel a certain kind of way about systems. Okay, go.
Good answer. That was a very ADHD answer.
Yes, yes.
I can respect and appreciate. But so when it comes to your customer journey, I guess the reason I love it or the way it like to me as a visual person or as an artist, I can think about people going through each stage, of a customer journey and then how they feel and how it all comes together to
Mm-hmm.
your product or your service. So for me, it's really fun because you can almost imagine your customers on a journey. Like they are, Bilbo Baggins or Frodo, I guess, like
Uh-huh.
they are on a journey and you get to kind of map it out. The reason, just to be, fully clear first, like a customer journey refers to a person's how they are interacting with you, your brand, and your product. So
Mm-hmm.
then when they don't know about you at all, the customer journey hasn't started. When they start noticing that they have a problem or symptoms or kind of are aware that they need something, then they start kind of tuning into their environment and then they might see you and then they'll start paying attention to you. Then the next stage is really starting to consider what you have to offer and can it help them. And then the next, it kind of just goes around like that. And I don't have it
Okay.
written in front of me, but it's
That's okay.
essentially how do they go from not knowing about you to how do they become someone who not only buys from you, but advocates for your business and talks
Mm-hmm.
about how great of an experience it was. So for
Mm-hmm.
me, I really love this process because it helps you understand who you're serving in a very granular way and like really get to know what you're providing for people. Um,
Okay.
for artists, this is a really hard concept. If you want to make a room full of artists run away from you, all you have to say is who's your ideal client? And they're
Mm-hmm.
gone. They're like, I'm
Yep.
out of here. I don't
Yep.
care who buys my art. Anyone can buy my art. But then I always give this kind of grounding position of, well, what if there's a person in the room who like hates art? Is
Okay.
that
Mm-hmm.
person your ideal client? And they're like, no. Okay, great. So we've got
We're
one.
getting somewhere.
Yeah, this person likes your art. So it's essentially, if you break down a customer journey, you can find all the fun little ways that you get to support someone or impact their life positively through their interactions with you. So,
Mm-hmm.
first, they like art. Okay, how can I help someone who likes art? I'll share an Instagram post about me making the art, or I'll show them the behind the scenes, or I'll tell them a little insider info about why I chose this color, or, oh, I'll just make some really beautiful visuals. And that way, when they're doom scrolling, I'll be able to pop in there with something beautiful or something they
Hmm.
connect to. So that's that first part. The next part is, oh, they start being interested in my work a little bit more. They want to go that next step with me. How do I serve them? How do I make sure they're getting the art that I'm making, that they feel connected to and inspired? Maybe I send them an email. Every week, they get an email from me sharing about the art I've made this week and the thoughts I've had. Because artists,
Hmm.
it's all about sort of living this life that is, very emotional and internal. How do you share all of that? You share it through an email. Think about it, right? So many artists are like, oh my God, I could never send an email. Like it just sounds, I don't want to annoy people. But you got to flip that script and realize you're sending them art in their inbox. Their inbox is filled with junk,
Yep.
with stuff that's asking them for things, stuff that's telling them to be upset, stuff that's, it's just constant. What if your email is that little break in the cloud? It's that little like, oh, I'm excited. I have so many artists who I've subscribed to, and when they send emails, I'm like so excited. Like, I get to see this person's new work. I love their work.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to see it. I can't buy it yet, but I'm excited to see it. So
Hmm.
then the next part, okay, now they're actually they have a little extra money and they're excited to spend it on some art. How do you help them in that process?
Hmm.
Well, I can provide them with my newest work. I can provide them different payment options. I can show them the next step that they want to take, right? Like, tell me where this is going to go. What kind of feelings are you trying to evoke with this art in your house? How can I provide to you what you need today? And so you can do it in many different ways, but that's kind of the thing. Then they are deciding to purchase with you, so you're helping them along, but you're not trying to pressure, you're not trying to manipulate, you're just offering as much help as you can. Sometimes, now, a lot of people don't understand this, but sometimes that looks like following up with someone who has disappeared on you. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm. Yes,
Yeah.
I do.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I had an
Hmm.
artist who made this beautiful proposal for someone that was so excited about her work, send it off in an email and crickets. Nothing
Hmm.
for probably a week and a half. And she was so upset. Oh my gosh. I asked for too much. I didn't put enough blah 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 in. He must hate me. This person's a jerk. Blah blah blah. All these stories. And then
Yep.
do you know what she did? She sent
What?
him a follow-up email and she had put away all of those stories and she said, "Hey, just checking in on that proposal. What did you think?" And this
Hmm.
person wrote back and said, I loved it. I'm so sorry. I got really distracted with family stuff. I'm here now. Thank you for checking back in and bringing this to my attention again. And let's go.
Hmm.
Right? That is what your customer journey is. How do you help them and support them? That's what it is. And then just to wrap it all up, so obviously you deliver the final product and the great experience. And then at the very end, you make sure you check in on them occasionally or you send them a thank you. um, Ask them to fill out a happiness survey. People love that. you know
Hmm.
you're completing that journey. And then the big thing, and a lot of people also miss this, don't just let them disappear. You keep those
Hmm.
people on your email list, man. They'll come back
Yep.
to you, I promise.
It's
Especially with art,
so
yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's so interesting. First, I love what you said about, that a certain artist's email newsletter or, message in your inbox could be that break in the clouds or that little joy vitamin that pops up, in all the chaos. So I love thinking of it that way. No matter what kind of art you create, it's something creative and it's something different, it's something visual. So I love just even, thinking of it that way. But it was so interesting hearing you talk about the customer journey because I'm sitting here thinking, I opened my business, I think 8 years ago, and I'm thinking, yeah, like I kind of have a customer journey, whatever. But as you're talking, I'm like, no, I do that. I just never thought of it as an actual structure,
Mm.
or an actual cadence. But I do those things, so I'm happy for that. I'm giving myself a gold star. But I also want to say, You are so, so right about the follow-up piece because let me tell you, I have resuscitated dead, ghosted proposals and packages more than 3 years later. And it has
Wow.
happened, it has happened multiple times where just, life is lifing, right? Life is lifing for everybody. And I used to fall into the trap where I would put meaning and tell stories and all this stuff, and I suck and they hate me and blah, 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 and all this crap. And, in the end, it was, I had to go to the emergency room. Something happened with my business. My house burned down. Like, who knows? We don't know what people are going through. And everyone is so busy. They are not paying attention to, things that might be super, super important to you as the business owner and creator. We're all doing our own thing. Sometimes things just fall through the cracks. And so, yes, there have been projects that I have brought back from the dead years later where it was like, we had a back and forth going and, check in with me again in 6 months, or I'm so sorry, it's just not a good time, but I still want to, blah, blah, blah. And I have booked clients that way. So yes, it is about following up if it's worth it, of course. I don't advise that for like, maybe smaller things, but like these were kind of big things that, would have been, it was worth me pursuing to that extent, I guess you would say. But at least a couple follow-ups, get into the habit of doing that. Because also, just like with anything else, the more that you do that, the easier it gets. And you feel less icky about that follow-up, the more that you start doing that follow-up. So I love
Yes.
that that's part of the journey. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's that action builds confidence again, right?
Yes,
Like, yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yep, I love that.
And the
Um,
truth is, I won't follow up on projects I don't actually really want to do that much. Well, that's not entirely true.
amen.
I should be like, there's also times I totally miss the follow up and I regret it. But there is times too where as this provider, as the owner of the business or whatever, you're like, I'll send this to them. And if they bite, great. And if they don't, that's okay. And so, from that perspective, too, you think about what they might be saying, like, oh, she never followed up again. She's not into it
Hmm.
either. Yeah, right? Like,
True.
or she's not
That's
really
fair.
wanting to think about it from both perspectives.
That's fair. That's a good point.
Yeah.
You mentioned ADHD,
Mhm.
and I have that as well. And you had talked about something that you have called themed days in your
Yeah.
business. I want to know what those are and how you've built them into your workflow. Like, because as soon as I read that, I'm like, that sounds really fun and cool. Tell me about that.
Okay, I love it. So Mondays are main thing Mondays. So
Hmm.
when I start my week, I never know how much energy and how much time I'm actually going to get out of it. I used
A
to.
hundred
I
percent.
used to know, but it's different these days. So,
Yeah.
main thing Monday means this is the day I'm focused purely on my business and my business's well-being. What do I need to do today to move the needle the most? What do I need to do today to support myself the most? The main thing Monday. So
Hmm.
that way, my mind is fresh. I don't have a lot of other stuff going on, and I can dive right into it. And some days it takes me a little longer than others, but some days that looks like taking a course. Like I had to do I looked into Amy Porterfield's Evergreen newsletter or Evergreen webinar thing. I had this course sitting on the side forever. And I knew that was a step I wanted in my business, but I kept putting it off because it feels like you're not doing something when you're just kind of
Hmm.
taking in information. And so
Yep.
that got slotted into a main thing Monday. Like, here we go. This is the next thing I need to do. Right? So
Love
that's
it.
kind of what a
Hmm.
main thing Monday is. Tuesday is Talkie Tuesday. So
Love it.
that makes it I'm like any other artist or business person. I can get really focused on what I'm doing in the back end. I can get really focused on my creative work, and it can feel like a shift or a big momentum change to have to talk to clients, talk to audience members, talk to people. So I've named it Talkie Tuesday, which means I go into Tuesday with the energy that I'm ready to talk.
Hmm. Hmm.
Right? And then Wednesday is client work Wednesday. So if I have other clients or I have people that I need to focus on and check in with, that's what I do on a Wednesday. Um, or, just kind of working around that. Generally,
Mm-hmm.
I'll start moving main thing Monday into Wednesday. Yeah, I'm like, what? And then Thursday is really just about kind of finishing things up. And
Mm-hmm.
Friday is about that kind of structured free time. Like
Okay.
Fridays are my exploration days. They're my days where I don't have to finish anything. I don't have to do anything in particular. I can just let myself follow whatever inspiration or fun ideas I have as related to my business. And all of this comes with a huge caveat of I'm allowed to change this at any time.
There we go.
Yeah. If I need a nap, I'll take a nap.
Yep. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Kay, you're making my life right now because like I love the idea of it's kind of like the loose structure thing that I was talking about earlier, but it also it by making those themed days, for me, it provides expectation and it provides like keeping my nervous system in check because it's kind of like I know what's coming, I know what's on my plate for this day. Because like I have a loose routine that I do every day, like an order of whatever that I do each day. Okay, I'm gonna check my email. Okay, now I'm gonna do this, and now I'm gonna do that. Um, but I love the idea of breaking the actual overall stuff into days because then I don't have to think about that today. That's a Thursday thing. Or, I can mark this unread until Friday or whatever. And then I love that Friday in particular is kind of like it's flowy, it's loose, it's whatever I need to do before the fun weekend. And then that like puts you in a good mood. And like I love so much about how you have, created that kind of flow for yourself. So I'm really excited to do this. I'm going to do this in my business. Like, I really like the idea of that. So thank you for sharing that.
My pleasure. I really want to hear how it goes for you.
I,
Tell me what you
I
come
will,
up
I
with.
will, I will. I'm serious. Like, it's funny when you were saying like, this is kind of my flowy kind of, loose day and I can always change my mind and whatever. I have a sign hanging in my office. It's not on camera, but it's a sign that says playroom rules. And it says, have fun, play fair, be silly, say please and thank you, try new things, laugh, et cetera, all these different things. And I need to remember to do more of that stuff and, make time for that stuff. And what I love too about how you're approaching these weeks is that you're doing it so intentionally.
Yeah.
You have the freedom for your brain that it needs, but you're still moving forward with intention. So I just love that so much. I really can't wait to do this, and I will follow up with you to tell you how it's going. Um,
Yeah, please do. I will say too, as someone with ADHD who has found lots of different tactics to
mhm.
manage myself, um, I always have to get a new tactic after so long too. You
Yes,
know,
yes,
and so
same.
I always kind of just say like, remember, this might work for you for like 4 months, and that's great. That's 4 months that we got out of that. Awesome.
Yep, yep.
You know,
I totally
yeah.
relate to that. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. But I love
Uh,
your sign that you mentioned because, like, so
yeah.
much of the time when you're in business, it's just like grind, grind, grind. You have to remember to take care of yourself by having fun. And when you work
hmm
alone or in a, isolated, you're not with an audio or an office, you don't have like the fun personality person coming around giving you chocolate chip cookies. I mean, I
Right.
give myself chocolate chip cookies, but you don't
There we
have that
go.
kind of that person who just kind of like brightens everybody's day. You don't have
hmm
that. So you kind of have to manage yourself a lot. Woof.
Yeah, yeah. And I loved too about what you said about the course, like okay, Mondays, this is something that I need to do on a Monday because I'm somebody who, sometimes I'm a digital hoarder of resources,
Oh
workshops,
yeah.
courses, whatever, and it's like dude, if you don't like set aside the time to get through the material, you're never going to. So if
Yeah.
it's something that you need to attend or read or watch that is going to then teach you something new that you can then reinvest into your business, that's a worthwhile thing. And you need to set aside intentional time to get through that material. And then it's done. And then it's not on your plate anymore. And yay, and good for you. So I love that that's
Exactly.
part of it too.
I think
Yeah.
too that main thing Monday is about stepping back from your business and really taking stock of it and taking care of your CEO self. It's really so letting yourself take the time to do a lesson instead of getting right into the grind work. It's so powerful for you and your mentality too.
Very true. Yes,
Yeah.
such a good
Yeah.
point.
Mhm.
And you mentioned earlier, I wanted to ask about this. So, pet portraits.
Oh yeah.
I have so many. My roommate that I live with, he has a dog. So technically, he's my dog, but he's not really my dog. But he's my dog. And similarly, my brothers both have dogs. I have so many friends who have dogs, and not just dogs. I have a friend who has a rabbit. I have a friend who has birds. And they just all love their animals and their pets so much. And so I want to know about the complete pet portrait business system. I want to know what made you create it. And I want to know, as someone who has done many portraits of pets, I want to know if you've gotten any unusual requests while painting those portraits.
This is great questions. So first, the complete pet portrait business system is a system for artists to increase and grow their own pet portrait business.
Mm-hmm.
Pet portraits are an incredible way for artists to make revenue that is somewhat regular, reoccurring,
Mm-hmm.
impactful, and can be somewhat strategic, or what's the word I'm looking for? Like you can plan for it, and this
Yeah.
is really important to create in your business revenue that you can trust or know that is
Mm.
coming. That's why I love pet portraits. They're super empowering for the artist as far as bringing revenue and income into their business, but they're also super fun. Like you get to paint other
Yeah.
people's kids, you
Mm-hmm.
know, their fur babies and people are so in love with and so attached to their pets. You're making someone's life like you're making art about something that's probably like one of the most special things in their life. I mean, what more
Mm-hmm.
could you ask for, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so and then the other thing is pet portraits are such a good way to learn about sales, messaging,
Mm.
customers. Like they're such a great thing to just kind of hold on to get yourself going into business. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of artists don't like commissions, and I can respect that and appreciate it. But I think there's ways where it doesn't have to feel bad, you know?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Um,
Yeah.
so the complete pet portrait business system is essentially it's based on a framework that takes people through deciding what their product is. What are they offering? These things they seem maybe like base level, but if you talk to most artists who have never done any work like this or who have done work like this and they're getting a lot of work, but they're still kind of scattered, right? Like they're still kind of like every time someone asks them about one, they're like making up a price on the spot based on
Mm.
how they feel that day. And
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
did that for years too.
Uh-huh.
Like there is no shame. So it starts with, product development. What sizes are you going to offer? What price points are you going to offer? You figure that out from a holistic view instead of
Mm-hmm.
case by case. And once you set that in stone, there it is. So I have all sorts of worksheets to help people move through that. Then there's the marketing, there's the operations, there's all of it. And then, so
Amazing.
it's yeah, it's just a holistic thing where there's worksheets, there's video explainers, there's information. And then I just added this amazing piece to it, which I'm so excited about. It's a tracker, a project tracker. So they
Mm.
can log in and they can literally put in all of their commissions with the client information, the reference photos, all of it. It'll go on a project type timeline or pipeline, and then they can move it. This person
Mm.
paid their deposit. This painting is now in progress. This is delivered. This is completed. And that kind of organization literally made my business go from like 60,000 to 80,000. And I know that
Amazing.
sounds really dramatic, but I was turning away a lot of commissions because I was like, I don't want to deal with trying to find stuff in the emails.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so, it's silly, but it's like you don't realize what's kind of working in your subconscious sometimes. So once I
Hmm.
got really cleanly organized, yes, give me another commission. Bring it on. It's easy now. So I've created that for artists. Yeah, so I'm
I love
really,
that.
yeah.
Also, I would think that the tracker piece by not only helping you get more organized, which is amazing because now everything's in one spot, but also it's creating a visual, which is very helpful, at least for my brain. Like I'm super visual, so I love seeing it. And then I would imagine it also helps with the dopamine of like, you're getting a reward here, to be able to hit the next payment benchmark or to be able to deliver the final product and put it into your portfolio or whatever, get a happy, Google review from a client or whatever. And then you're seeing, the dollar amounts adding up. Like I just love that you created a way to harness all of the stuff that floats in our brain and in our inbox into
Yes.
one spot where then you can literally project manage the portrait. Um,
Thing. You're
yeah.
so right. I didn't even think about, even though I'm like, you can move it, like clearly, I'm like, dopamine. You're so
Well,
right. That's what it is. Yeah.
well, the reason that I said that is because so the project management tool that I use behind the scenes of my business, I use Trello. Um,
Yeah.
and I know there's other ones, Notion and Monday and all these different ones. Well, with Trello, I have like different boards, and then in those boards, I have different columns, and then in those columns, I have different cards. And so my columns are normally to do, doing, and done. And so I'm literally pulling tasks into those columns and whatever, and I have mine programmed so that when I pull something into the done column, confetti explodes on screen. And that's so helpful for me.
That
Um,
is such a good idea.
so when you're making those portraits, did anyone give you anything unusual over the years?
I feel like this is such a lame answer, but not really.
No? Okay.
Let me think about it. I'm sure there is some funny ones in there somewhere. Oh, I have one. Oh my gosh, I have a great one.
Okay,
So
okay.
for a couple that was getting married, her brother reached out to me and said, I want a portrait of their cat. And I was like,
Hmm.
great, I know this cat. They were family friends or friends actually. And I was like, I know that cat. I will definitely do this. And he's like, well, here's the thing. I want it to be riding a bison, chasing magpies on the Yellowstone River.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
And I was like, okay.
We love the creative direction. We listen and we don't judge.
And I made it and it's on their wall and it's one of the funniest paintings I've ever created. It's just fun.
How cool. How much
Yeah.
fun. I love too that it was it wasn't for them themselves. It was someone directing this as a gift for somebody. I love that.
Yes. As you can tell, that family has a lot of humor, and
Yes.
that cat has a lot of personality.
That's so cool. We were talking about hacks for our brain and productivity and project management and all that stuff. And I know that you have a very cool ritual with Claude AI
Okay.
um, that helps you track progress as well and give you brain receipts. I would love to hear about that because, like I said earlier, like I love ChatGPT, but I know there's so many other AI tools out there that I haven't tried yet. And I definitely want to give them a whirl this year. But tell me
Yeah.
about that and tell me how you're using AI in your creative business as well.
That's a really important question. Like everyone right now is just
Yeah,
AI, AI. I was an early adopter because I was like, this is
me
great.
too.
Yeah, whatever. It's great. It will help me write emails, like responding professionally and things like that. So you and
Hmm.
I are both early adopters, and now it's kind of like, wow, there's so much, and everybody's talking about it, and everybody's using it. It's good you're
Hmm.
providing a workshop because, having been in it for a couple years now and seeing sort of this just en masse. You're like, let's give folks a little bit more structure, a little direction
Exactly.
on how to actually use this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so the Claude AI that I use, it allows you to set up different projects, and then within that project, you can upload project knowledge, and then have different chats within that specific project. And
Got
so
it.
I do a weekly. So I was having this experience. Maybe you can tell me if you have, or if other people can, if they felt this. But I was in this experience where I was doing so much work and my brain just would refuse to believe it. Like at the end of the day, my brain was just like, you literally didn't do anything today. Or at the end of the week, my brain was like, you don't get a weekend. You have not accomplished a single thing. And it was actually really bad. It was influencing my relationship with my husband. Like he
Mm,
was starting to, not that he said anything, but I could tell that he was like, I'm kind of getting tired of having to always like amp you up. Like, I'm not
sure.
trying to put that on him, but I want to be a pleasant person to be around for the most part.
Sure.
And
Mm-hmm.
so this was a problem I was really having of I don't have any feedback because I'm not in an office, I'm not in a team setting. I'm purely working by myself. I'm not making art. And when I make art, I can see very visually, hey, I did this today and that's
Yep.
awesome. But when I'm doing this coaching stuff or this artist guide to business stuff, it's all online. So it's, you don't have a physical endpoint. My brain was just like, ah. So to resolve it, I started using Claude as a weekly to-do list. So it's actually not a to-do list. I don't really tell Claude what I need to do.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
I do tell Claude what I have done. So
Mm-hmm.
throughout the day, if I'm like, woo, I'm starting to slow down here, I'm going to be done with work, I will just pull it out on my phone and I'll just type in, hey, it's Wednesday. This is what I've done so far today. And then these AIs, they're trained to like hype you up and be like, you're the best.
Yep. You're so pretty. You're so pretty.
It's true. So I'm like, so Claude's always like, dang, you did some good work today.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
Mm-hmm.
and so I do that throughout the whole week. And then on Friday, the ritual is kind of when I'm ready to shut it down. I ask Claude to give me my week review. And in that week review, I include literally everything I did. Like, I want to see everything that got accomplished, but I also break it into pieces, things that I'm proud of, which I tell it, during the week, or
Mm-hmm.
magical moments, right? Like moments of connection with my husband, or if somebody sends me a really good review on the podcast, like that is the stuff that you've got to make front and center for your brain
Yep.
because it's so important. We're trained, our brains want to pay attention to problems. That's what our brains are
Oh my
biologically.
God. A
Yeah.
hundred percent.
Yeah, they want to do that. So we have to counter that by amplifying and really, expressing like, no, this person sent me an email and said that I've, really inspired them and encouraged them to pursue their art. I gotta make that the baseline. Like that's the thing I want to see on Friday before I go into my week or weekend. So that's what I have it do. It shoots it all back out at me. I read through it, and then I actually copy and paste it into Notion, and I put it in the project. What is it? Knowledge. So then I'm not kidding you, Alicia. I was able at the end of quarter 1 to have Claude go through every single week for the last 3 months and summarize my quarter 1 for me. It was so cool.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Isn't that
And
cool?
it's funny because okay, let me back up.
Yeah.
So when you were talking about the way that you were feeling like, oh my God, like I'm doing so much, I feel like I have nothing to show for it. I feel like I have no results, like nothing really happened, even though I'm freaking exhausted, blah, blah, blah. I relate to that so hardcore. And so what I started doing last year was again in Trello, I have in addition to the columns for to do, doing, and done, I also have a general like general to-do list of just, I'll dump tasks into there and then I'll figure out how to prioritize. Um, but what I started talking about with my virtual assistant, Caitlin, who's a real person, not an AI, even though I have AI helpers too. I had her first in 2020. But what I started talking with her about was, I need a way, a visual way to, instead of keeping, piling on to do, to do, to do, to do, to do, I need a way to see what I've done, same as you. And
Yes.
so
Yeah.
I I have a column now for the completed to date. But what I do when I said before that I pull it into the done column is called ta-da. So I've gone from to do to ta-da.
I love
And
it.
and seeing that visually again, huge for my dopamine, huge for my productivity, huge for my self-worth, which sucks, but it's true. And
Yeah.
huge for, just seeing like, okay, like, yeah, I'm tired and here's why. Here's all the stuff that happened. But what I love so much about what you just said and I cannot wait to do is feeding it those other things that happen, those communications, the comments, the questions, the situations, not just tasks or projects or client work or inquiries or whatever, but like, oh, someone told me this nice thing. Oh, I experienced this cool thing. Oh, this was a happy joy moment. Like, you are
Yeah.
so right about putting that in there so that it can then tell you your story later in a recap. Like, that's mind blowing to me. I cannot wait to start doing that. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's really fun,
Yeah.
and just because I feel somewhat responsible to anyone listening to this, you know, um, it's really fun to use these tools and everything like that. Remember though, it's not a real person. So even
Hmm.
though I use it to say things like, Claude, if you were a life coach and you were looking at my last week, what is one thing that you think I did really good? Right. And then
Hmm.
it can spit some stuff out. Or what is one area you could see room for improvement? And then it tells me some stuff. I can do that because I know it's not sentient and I keep that,
Yeah.
so always make sure you remember to use these tools, use the heck out of them. I'm excited you're excited about this because I'll tell you what, it's been one of the coolest things. And
Hmm.
I love it. I think everybody should do it, but just always remember too that if Claude is giving you mental health advice or anything like that,
Mm-hmm.
remember this is language modeling.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Do
Totally.
you
Yeah.
do you Alicia, do you feel responsible to kind of like how do you explain that to people? Because I think I don't know, is that something you
Yep.
focus on? Yeah.
I do. Well, not focus on in a huge way, but like I did have a whole section of my workshop about that. I was
You
explaining
did.
like, yeah, I was like, look, like let's remember that, well, first of all, I was showing them how to turn off like the training, in the account, like, to not just put your stuff out there as
Oh,
part of the
yeah.
training other models. But I also was explaining, you need to use it ethically. These are pulling in artwork sources from other places, which I'm sure is a huge conversation in your community of,
Woo.
AI and art. I mean, that's a whole other like season of podcast episodes. But of
Yeah.
telling people, no, you shouldn't like, have it create an image for you and then, you go and sell that thing. But it could help you mock up something that you could, visualize or like, brainstorm, inspire ideas and you go make it yourself or something like that. But also, I want them to know that not only is ChatGPT not a person, it also can make mistakes. It can hallucinate. It can make stuff up.
Yes.
You
Yes.
have to check for facts and clarity and all of that kind of thing. But the main point of my workshop was really getting them to understand how they can use it as a helper, not so much to create content, but like to help you prioritize, help you organize, help you track, help you think through. Something that I use it a lot for is helping me make my point. What are the two, like, how are these 2 points related to each other? Can you help me make sense? Because I don't know what the frick I'm saying. And then,
Yes.
it's like, yes, got you. You're saying this, this, this. Here's a way to say that. And then I put it into my own words. Things like that. But yes, I mean, there's so much happening every single day, and I am not an ethics specialist. All I can do is read the news and try to learn and try to guide. And
Yeah.
I think that a lot will continue to happen. as this becomes, such a cornerstone of our lives, like I think AI is going to be, as big as the World Wide Web, as
Right.
internet, as email, as Google, as social media. Like AI is right up there with those. And so there's going to be a lot coming, but I was an early adopter too, because I needed help. I needed ways to um, detangle my brain. So I'm grateful for it. But yes, absolutely, it is not perfect, and it does not replace a human being, and it does not replace your own voice either. Like using our own voice in
Exactly.
our business is so
Yeah.
important, and you can train it and help it and all that stuff, but it's never going to replace the true you, your human touch, your human voice. So I love that you said that.
It's
Um,
so true. Yeah.
yeah. So, heading towards the end here, before we get into where folks can find you and connect with you and work with you, I always like to ask my guests this, just a random question. Is there something right now, could be about anything, something right now that you are totally obsessed with?
Oh, that's a really good question. Um, something I am totally obsessed with. Um, Sorry, my dog is whining. Let me just.
Oh, yeah, that's okay.
All right. Something I am totally obsessed with. I feel like I'm actually ending a lot of obsessions right now.
Ooh, okay.
For a brief period there, I got very obsessed with lifetime software deals. So I was
Oh,
buying
man.
like every single piece of lifetime software deal that I could find.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I know what I am obsessed with right now. I am obsessed with creating a really amazing podcast and creating
Mm.
a really perfect, not perfect, but a very good flow for myself in creating podcast episodes. It's very natural for me to get on and talk to someone else. It is very
Mm-hmm.
challenging to just talk to myself while
Mm-hmm.
trying to talk to other people. And so I have been refining that system for a while, but it kind of got put on hold while I built the pet portrait business system. And
Okay.
so now I'm able to make space for it again. So I'm coming back to that, but being very intentional about how I'm structuring the podcast episodes, making sure it's entertaining while also informative. There's a lot to balance, as you know.
Yes, there
You know,
is.
there is.
Yep.
And I haven't yet found the perfect way to like, this is where my scripts are. This is where my brainstorms are. Those kind of organizational details.
Mm-hmm.
I don't use paper anymore. I do use it occasionally for a bigger mapping, but I have like the remarkable thing, whatever. Not that that's like an
Mm-hmm.
ego thing, it's more just an organizational thing.
Mm-hmm.
But, so I think I'm obsessed with figuring out how to write a podcast episode that I feel really good about, that feels like my voice,
Mm-hmm.
while also still being authentic or helpful and valuable. How's that for an answer?
I love it. I love
Yeah.
it. And on a selfish note, I can't wait to
Yeah.
be on your podcast. We're gonna have so much fun.
Yeah.
We're doing a
Exactly.
little podcast swap here, people, and so we're gonna organize that. But yeah, I can't wait. This was such a fun chat.
I agree.
And I just love, like, there's so many awesome nuggets of advice in here. I can't wait to re-listen to this. I can't wait to implement some of those ideas. And I
Yeah.
just feel like our brains are very similar in how they need to kind of operate.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate you kind of pulling back the curtain and sharing that. So any final words of encouragement for artists out there and creatives who are listening, who really just love what they do and love who they serve and just love the work, but maybe they're just scared to market it. They're scared to tell people about it.
Yeah. My biggest, the thing I would tell all artists or people in business really is persistence. You just continue to have persistence. Persistence is more powerful than consistence. Like everybody will tell you, be consistent, be consistent, be consistent. And then when you don't write an email for a week or when you don't reach out to a client for a week, you'll beat yourself up to death. That's
Mhm.
not helpful, right?
Nope.
Persistence is always starting back up when it's appropriate, when you can. You just persistence. Keep trying. Just keep trying. Because all of these small actions that you take, they compound over time. But if you're waiting for things to be perfect, or if you're thinking, oh, I didn't do it last week, so I'm not going to do it this week, right? Like that kind of thinking is only going to hurt you. You just, every time you can, take a small action towards your dreams. Yeah. Oh, you know what? I'm going to say one other thing, girl. I'm
Get,
going to
please
say,
do.
don't be scared to ask for what you need or for what you
Mm.
get help with, and have a really
Mm-hmm.
concrete thing that you can ask people, you know? What can
Mm-hmm.
help you? This is what can help me. Always be thinking of that.
I love that. I love the bravery and the boldness to literally ask for what you need and want, like 100%. And what you were saying about persistency over consistency, 1,000% agree. Get out of my brain because that black and white thinking serves nobody. We are
Nobody.
not that it doesn't work like that, folks.
Nope.
So just because you skipped a week, you skipped a day, get back on the horse when you want to and when you can. It's okay. So thank you for saying that.
Absolutely.
Well,
Well,
Kay,
thanks.
this was so much fun. Thank you so much. And tell folks, where can we find you online? Where can we check out your work? How can we work with Kay Potter?
Um, yeah, so I have a podcast called The Artist's Guide to Business. I like to caveat that and say, imagine a guidebook. It wasn't meant
Mm.
to be me. It is me for now. But
Mm-hmm.
I want you to think of it as the artist's guide to business. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's a podcast. If you're listening to this podcast, then you like podcasts. So check that out. I do upload episodes on YouTube as well. And then you can find me at www.theartistsguidetobusiness.com. It's the world's longest business name, but I really wanted it to be pretty straightforward.
I love it. And I'm putting all of Kay's links in the show notes so you can head there and find out about her pet portrait training, about her YouTube, her podcast, her website, all the things. So head there now and make sure that you connect with Kay. Thank you so much again. This was so much fun.
Thank you. That was really wonderful. Yeah.
All right, my friend, I will talk with you soon. Bye bye.
Okay. Bye.